So have you ever thought about quitting your job and being under the illusion that it will be the solution to all of your problems? But at the same time, you've got that worry in the back of your mind about what would happen if you actually quit your job and therefore you had no money coming in at all? And how would you even afford to live? Now, this is quite a common struggle, and it's one that a lot of influencers online aren't talking about. You see, most influencers have content that is designed to sell a product or a service like growing your own business or something of that nature. And that means they are biased to tell you the things to get going quickly, i.e. quit your job and get started tomorrow. And there's always an urgency. If you do it really fast and you just quit your job and you've got all the time in the world to pump into this, you can be successful in 2 to 3 months. But the reality is it's never that simple, and it's a massive risk that you would take on if you did such a thing and you followed such advice. So in this video, I'm going to help you understand why quitting your job is probably one of the smartest things that you can do, but can also be one of the stupidest things that you do if you do it without a plan in place. And by the end of this video, you're going to know all of the pros and cons around quitting your job, the things you might need to consider, and how to make sure that you are set up for the future. Now, before we get into this smart versus stupid argument, let me tell you why I know this. Now, I was in a situation not too long back, maybe 3 to 4 months ago, where I was made redundant at short notice and wasn't given any notice at all. And it had the kind of effect of feeling like I'd been forced to quit. As a result of that, I had to go into fight or flight mode. I had to go and find some other opportunity or some other kind of work to keep things going. So I know what it's like to be on the edge. I had a full 10 days of complete and utter stress and panic. I'm surprised I didn't lose any hair as a result of it, because that is a lot of stress to take on, and it's a lot of worry to have if you're not earning any money, especially if you're of an older generation like me. You've got a family independence to look after and maybe big expenses like a house or even a car that you haven't finance to get by. Not being able to pay those things at short notice can put a lot of stress on your plate. And that's why I wanted to elaborate on this, to make sure that you don't fall into the same situation that I did, and that you've got true perspective on everything that can happen if you were to quit your job. So let's get into these points. And we're firstly going to start with why it might be one of the stupidest things you can do to quit your job. So the first point should be an obvious one. But what would you do tomorrow if you suddenly had no money coming in? And let's assume for a second that you didn't have any savings put away, or you didn't have any of the side hustles or any of the businesses, and maybe you're even a single earner, and all of a sudden your earnings are just stripped away. Well, what would happen is you would start having debt accrued on top of you, and that would add to the pressure of you needing to earn money quickly. So the financial impact is very, very immediate if you were to quit your job. The next one is your future employment prospects. So if you ever dreamed of just waking up one day, calling in and saying to your boss, off, I don't want to work for you anymore. I'm not interested in this company or anything that you want to do. I hate what I do and I can't wait to leave. Now, whilst that might seem like a good idea on paper, that really is a bad idea when it comes to quitting your job. And that is because you are doing it on a whim. And also you are burning any bridges that you might need for later on. For example, if you were going to go and try and find a job somewhere else, most new jobs will ask for references from employers. And if you've already burnt that bridge by telling your boss to effectively go and jump off a cliff, there is little chance that you're going to get that reference or any recommendation in that industry. And that kind of stuff can spread and make you a toxic person to work with, in which case people wouldn't want to employ you. And the next reason why it's really stupid to just quit your job is the fact that there may be no demand for you once you've quit. So the chances are that if you quit your job, you're unlikely to be going back to the same company because you didn't like it there in the first place. But what you might find based on the job market is that it's quite surprising at the moment in terms of the amount of professional working jobs that are available. Some recent news came out that suggested Microsoft were cutting up to 7,000 jobs in their company and actually replacing them by AI and automation capabilities. And that's quite a worrying sign, because that suggests that there will be less jobs in the future for people anyway. So the chances are if you quit your job, you might not actually be able to find anything. During the period when I was made redundant, I was surprised by how many professional people that I had worked with in the IT industry who were looking for roles 14 months since they'd been made redundant or let go from their companies. And that's quite a staggering amount of time. Ask yourself a question: could you survive for 14 months without work and no money coming in and expect to pay all of your bills? The chances are most people wouldn't. So those are the reasons why it's a stupid idea to just quit your job. And the key takeaway from all of that is that you should have a plan in order to make sure that when you quit your job, you have something to go into. Do not make the mistake of just quitting your job like influencers might tell you to do, because it's best for their business. Look after number one and your own family first. Now, there is a completely different side to this argument, and that is that it can be one of the smartest things that you can do to quit your job. So now I'm going to explain to you the 3 reasons why it's a good idea to quit your job. Let's say you're selling lemonade on a hot summer's day and there's quite a demand for lemonade. You've picked a perfect business type for that given situation, and you can charge however much you want to for lemonade. If you start to run out of supply, you can charge more based on supply and demand. And this is something that you have full control over when it comes to financial prospects. If, for example, you were launching your own business, you can also look for additional money opportunities, even if you were quitting your job to go to another full-time job, because you can be looking at the salaries and thinking, well, how do I get into the next role up? And how much money could I earn there? So the financial prospects are absolutely massive. And if you were launching your own business, they are technically unlimited. And that is why a lot of people go down the route of creating their own business, because it allows them to create a level of income that they want for the level of service that they provide. And the next reason is not always obvious to everyone, but if you're in a technical or a professional role, this will definitely apply to you. So if you were a web developer, for example, and you build websites for a living and you build amazing front ends and you're working for a company, when you build these amazing products, guess who owns them at the end of it? It's not you, it's actually your company. According to your employment contract, anything that you would do for a company is theirs to keep. It's all their intellectual property. And because you're employed by them, anything you do for them is theirs by default. So if you leave, you can't take stuff with you legally anyway. Now imagine doing the same kind of service, but you do it for your own company. Well, in this case, not only do you now get to charge what you want for that product and that service, you can technically sell the entire intellectual property for a massive profit, or you can be absorbed by another company. We've seen technology companies get acquired by bigger companies in the past for providing amazing, innovative tools. And also, if you wanted to launch other businesses and use the same framework, you technically can do that as well, because you own all of the rights to your property. You can charge as much as you want for it. You could make it a subscription-based service. You could do literally anything, and you could rinse and repeat that if you've got those kind of skills. You would never get that in a company. The company would always own everything. So the final reason applies more to if you were going to grow your own business, and that is around freedom and time. So let me explain a situation that I was in previously. I used to work in a city in the UK called London, and I used to commute there 3 times a week. That's 3 separate occasions of there and back in order to start work at 9:30 a.m. Now that sounds absolutely fine, but given I don't live that close to London, my journey would involve a car or taxi trip to the train station, a full-blown train journey, and then 2 subway, or in the UK, tube rides, and then a substantial walk to even get to the office. Even though I was starting work at 9:30 a.m, I had to actually get up in the morning at 4:45 a.m. to get there on time. Now that seems like an absolutely ridiculous amount of extra time. And get this, it happened at the other end as well. So you'd finish work at 5 or 5:30, and then you've got to do the repeat trip. So you can add another 4.5 hours on top of that. I was literally getting up at 4:45 a.m. and literally getting back through the door about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And this is the problem when you work for a company. You have commuting time, you have hours that you have to work, everything is rigid and you are somewhat stuck. Now, since then, I've had roles where I work completely remotely, which means I can technically get up if I want to at 9:25 and be at work for 9:30, working in your pants. So the point here is that if you have your own business and you didn't have all that commuting time and those rigid hours, you can literally choose how and when you work. So I could actually choose to work 4 hours on a Monday, 10 hours on a Tuesday, not work at all on a Wednesday because it doesn't suit me. And I can literally mix and match my diary to how I want to live my life. And I can do it as I feel like it on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. There's no rigid thing that's set. That is something that you will never get if you're full-time employed by a company. You'll be locked into a certain number of hours, and there'll be little to no flexibility in that. So those are all of the reasons and the pros and cons as to why quitting your job can not only be the smartest thing that you can do, but could also be one of the stupidest things that you can do. The key thing on all of this is that if you have a plan, you actually mitigate all of the downsides that come with quitting your job. The plan is there so that you can move from one thing into another. So that means if you wanted to quit your job and go to another job, or even quit your job and launch a business, you can do either, provided that you have a plan and an idea of what it is that you're going to do, and that you've even got things set up and rolling, you've done all of your research, and maybe you've even been offered a job role, or you've even got your business idea sort of ready and off the ground, this is the only time I could really recommend quitting your job. Just doing it off the bat without a moment's notice, without any thought or planning, is a reckless decision, and it's something that's not going to be beneficial for your employment career or for growing a business either. So if you could only take away one piece of advice from this video, it would be that you should not quit your job without a plan. And that is why I'd recommend watching this video next, as I break down exactly why you shouldn't do that. So if you click on that video next, and I'll chat to you over there.